There is a war being waged for the souls of mankind. Most cannot see this because they have been made ignorant of the law. It is time people see the severity of the situation. Let us start with this. Man does not create law. God is the only author of law. In Blackstone's commentaries, one of the most authoritative treatises on law ever written, we read, "This law of nature, being coeval with mankind and dictated by God himself, is, of course, superior in obligation to any other. It is binding over all the globe in all countries, and at all times no human laws are of any validity, if contrary to this. And such of them as are valid derive all their force and all their authority, mediately or immediately, from this original." The fall of Lucifer and man has always been about the desire to take this authority to make law for themselves, to be the ones to determine what is good and evil. Man learned quickly that he could properly decide for himself what was good and what was evil. But that fundamental law prevented him from imposing his will on others without their consent. In Cruden vs. Neal, we read, "Every man is independent of all laws, except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound by any institutions formed by his fellow men without his consent." There are exceptions to the requirement for consent. These are incompetence and dependency. It follows that since man has no choice but to be dependent upon God, and that is why he is subject to his law, then if man can make others dependent upon him, they must subject themselves to his will. Returning to Blackstone, we read, "A being, independent of any other, has no rule to pursue, but such as he prescribes to himself. But a state of dependence will inevitably oblige the inferior to take the will of him, on whom he depends, as the rule of his conduct. The estates of incompetents, paupers, and orphans all come under administration by the state, where all property and behavior are regulated by the administrators. In fine, man can impose his will on those under his administration." Thus began the devilish game of converting entire societies to infantile incompetence and chattel property under the doctrine of parens patria, hopelessly dependent upon daddy government. For this purpose, central banks were created to work in tandem with bar associations to bankrupt the nations and reduce the populations to paupers held in national trusts and under administration. The devil has all but won, as so-called governments around the world enforce, under the color of law, regulatory statutes and codes, which are often in conflict with the actual law. The Tower of Babel is nearing completion, and they intend to make it permanent by converting to a digital system and using AI to enforce compliance. Learn more by searching Burn the Corporate Fiction on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, and X.